Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today I'm again working in my 6x6 Dina Wakley art journal and looking at working in black and white. So these are two pages I had in my journal and you can see one already had black on it. So this has been, I've sort of been using black within my journal and just sort of rolled off my brayer in my page. Now I did paint over it with some white over the top, but I don't mind that grey is coming through because that side of the page is going to be black. I deliberately wanted a white and black page. So now all I'm doing is going in with some scribble sticks and I'm just scribbling them straight onto the page in a completely random way and then adding water to them. And I'm just creating a background that is going to be painted over. So I'm not really concerned about how it's working, what's showing up, what's not. I just want to put some colour in the background. I find when I'm using the scribble sticks, I don't get as an intense colour if I just scribble them onto the page and wet them. I actually much prefer dipping them into water, which I'm doing off screen, and then just drawing straight onto my project. I find I get much richer colour into what I'm doing. So that's what I'm just doing, just adding bits and pieces to my page, using a wet brush to sort of move it around where I want it to go, just creating sort of a multicoloured background, no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing. And this is going to be seen through some collage that I'm going to put down on my page. So once I finish that, now I'm just going in again with the wet end of the scribble sticks and just putting some patterns in the background. If you've watched some of the other videos, I think the one last week, Creativity Takes Courage, this is pretty much the same techniques that I used on that, except I don't have the collage in the background. I'm just putting some water media down, making some marks over the top. So it can be quite complex and busy, or it can be quite simple. It really is up to you how you choose to do these things. The next thing that I'm going to do is to wet the end of the brush and use a stiff brush to do this and just to sort of spray it across the page. I do tend to get more around my area rather than on my book. So you will see I've got some papers that I use in my books to collect anything that goes over the edges. Those papers in themselves, once I've finished with them or I think they look really interesting, I take them into my computer room and scan them and print them out onto sticker paper, and I've got some really cool, hand painted, odd looking papers that I can cut up and tear up and use in some collages. And it's just from, the excess paints that have come off my page, which I really love. So this is the paper that I'm going to be using. This is some of the church windows from the Dina Wakley collage papers. The design of this layout is based on one, I think, by Inky Fairy Designs, Carissa, and I will check that and put it into the description if I'm incorrect. I have done a video very similar to this on my channel before, and again the setup of how I did it was it was the same, but the layout looks slightly different. So if you check that out, that will let you know who the inspiration of this page is. But I just really love the simplicity and the beauty of it. And I love that black and white. It really appeals to me. So I'm just using 3 of the large windows and 2 of the small windows. And I really love in the collage paper that you get both the large and small version of those windows. Now all I'm doing is going in and putting some gel medium on the back of those and gluing it down. I'm being quite careful not to put the gel medium over the top like I usually do, and the reason for that is I'm working on a water-soluble background. So if I put gel medium all over the top and around the edges, that would pick up some of those colours and bring it onto the front, which is not what I want. Now the great thing about doing this technique with water-soluble background is as soon as you put the gel medium on, or I am doing it, but I'm trying not to put it around the edges, as soon as you put the gel medium on to the water-soluble background, it activates it again. So it stains the paper, and I tend to find when I do that, that the collage tissue goes a lot more translucent than it usually does. Usually it has this really white halo to it, but you can sort of see on this page in particular that white has really sort of disappeared and you've got those colours of the background coming through. So now I'm going in with the Amsterdam White titanium white paint, which is a really opaque white. and being quite generous with how I'm applying it. And if any goes onto my collage paper, because it has been sealed with the matte medium, I can use a wet wipe to sort of wipe it off and put it where I want it to go. So on this side of the page is going to be white, on the other side is going to be black, and I'm going to use some black gesso, I think, to do the other side. You can see some of the scribble stick coming up through. I don't mind that that's happening because that sort of alludes to what's in the background, but most of it's whited out. And you can continue adding until you're happy with the depth of colour that you want. To me, I like having that background come through. To a lot of people, they may want it to be pure white. So on this page, I'm doing the opposite, and I'm just doing exactly the same thing, but just using the black. And again, you can see that background being painted out. So this technique is called reductive painting, where you block out the background and you just get left with your image in the middle. Now I just went in underneath the windows with a little bit of the black that I had left on my brush to get those shadows, and then going in and making the same shadows with some white underneath my black windows. And I ended up going in with my finger because I just wanted to have a more blended soft look than having brush strokes there. On the black was a little bit more harder to control because it wasn't as dry, whereas on the white it worked really, really well and was just able to blend in beautifully. So all I'm doing now is just going through and drying off my page, and I'm sharpening my Stabilo oil pencil, which is a black water soluble pencil. Because the grey on the black page was just a little bit too dark, I decided to dry brush some white over the top, and I'm really glad I did because now the grey tones are a little bit more even on both sides. So with this Stabilo oil pencil, I'm just going around with really rough sketchy lines to make it look a little bit more hand-drawn, and I've got a white Stabilo oil pencil to do on the black side, and just using some black underneath. These pencils are water soluble, so you can add water to them and they turn into this most magnificent black inky line. I think on this page, I'm not 100% sure, I actually just leave it as a pencil mark because I really like that sketchy line. It adds to what's happening. So now I'm just getting my white fine Posca paint pen, and make sure you shake it up really, really well. I forget to do that. I also sometimes put it into slightly wet paint, so I need to clean it off before I go. So just have some scrap paper to do that to make sure you're happy with it. And once it was working the way I wanted it to, I'm just going into those collage papers and just putting in some highlights, again with really, really sketchy lines. So the reason for doing that is you've got these beautiful images, but just by putting your hand over it and putting those little sketchy lines, it makes it look more hand-drawn, and it makes you part of the image. Instead of putting in something that someone else has drawn, you're adding something to it, which I find really, really important when I'm doing artwork. I don't want it all to be someone else's artwork. I want to have me in there somewhere. And yeah, that really appeals to me, that I'm involved in some way, shape or form. So underneath each of the windows now, I'm doing some really scribbly journaling, just about what this page means to me and about black and white and, you know, letting the light in. The quotes that I use on this page are from the Dina Wakley collage tissues, which are, I think, it's a Be Radiant, Let the Light In. We're all a little broken, that's how the light comes in. And that just really appeals to me personally, and in my life, it says a lot to me. So just to finish off these pages, I'm just doing some black and white splatters. So I'm using my fan brush and some acrylic inks in black and white, and you get these beautiful splodges across the page, which again make it look a little bit more hand-drawn. So it looks really great when the white goes on, and I'm going over the collage tissues as well just to blend it in, and putting a little bit on the other page as well, so you can get really nice big drops and little drops. Make sure you dry them off before you go. Acrylic ink does take a little while to dry, but with a heat gun it doesn't take too long. And make sure that you have some splatter paper around too, because when you're using your fan brush it does splatter out a little bit. If you're doing what I've done and working on your glass mat, if you've got some hand sanitizer, just drop that onto the background and that will clean everything off really well. And I would suggest, if you're using acrylic inks, that you do clean it off while it's still damp. If you don't have a surface that's easily cleanable, because once it dries, it does dry permanent, so just be aware. So these are some quotes that are on, again, the Dina Wakley tissue papers. This is from her second release. There was the windows, there was a huge page of quotes on it in all different shapes and sizes, lots of other lovely pages in there. They're all done in tissue papers, so when you apply matte medium to them, or gel medium, they do go almost translucent, so you can sort of really blend them into the page, and you sort of just have the text left on the page. You don't have the border. But I do tend to trim them down really, really close to the text, because I have a love-hate relationship with the white halos that you can sometimes get around the images. So this is the end of the process, and here's a close-up of how these pages went together. I love the black and white version of it. I will put the link of the original artist in my description for you to check out as well. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye for now.